let me introduce you, Tonya.
Okay.
Tonya, I don't think I'm on video, but that's okay. Tonya Phifer is our principal and senior investigator at JPPI. She is a Charlotte native, a graduate of Charlotte Latin and UNCC. Though she had opportunities available with the Capitol Police in Washington, D.C., she chose to stay in Charlotte after her mother became ill, which is lucky for us because she is considered one of the premier investigators in the city, is in high demand, and is now focused mainly on federal cases. After a stint in the Mecklenburg Sheriff's Office and with private fire in Raleigh, Tonya started JPPI in her garage with the help of her grandfather, and is now proud to say that her company is edging towards its 20th anniversary. Yay!
Yeah.
Tonya and Rhiannon met in one of Keith Shannon's CPCC courses in 2019. Tonya has begun pursuing her paralegal technology diploma, not to become a paralegal, but to better understand her clients. Tonya likes questions and doesn't mind being interrupted, so pipe up if there's something you'd like to ask. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Tonya.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Today, I'll take a little of your time to discuss the benefits of engaging a private investigator and the importance of communication between the investigators and paralegals. Next slide. All right, my name is Tonya Phifer. I'm the president and senior investigator with JPPI Investigative Services here in Charlotte. We've been in business for 16 years, getting a little long in the tooth around here with you mentioning 20 years, approaching 20 years. And I have personally been licensed as an investigator for 18 years here in North Carolina. Our staff here at JPPI, we're a team of experts. We have 4 investigators with the experience of, I'm a former Mecklenburg County sheriff right out of college. That's where I went to work. We have a retired NYPD detective who relocated from Brooklyn, New York to North Carolina about 2 years ago, and he's been on staff with us for about 1.5 years. We have an Army veteran. He's my investigator that's been with me the longest, about 10 years now. And then we have an insurance investigator as well. And currently, in the intro, you heard that I'm enrolled at CPCC in the Paralegal Technology Program. And that is where I met my friend Rhiannon, who invited me to participate in this today. We also have on staff a mitigation specialist. She comes with 10 years of experience from the Mecklenburg County Department of Social Services. She also worked in Washington, D.C. in social services and worked in the Maryland school system. We have a process server on staff. She's a former legal assistant from a law office that we do work for. And then we have an administrative investigator on staff. And if any of you have watched Criminal Minds with Shamar Moore and the other characters, our investigative assistant is like the character Kirsten, who Shamar affectionately refers to as baby girl. It'd be awkward if we addressed her as baby girl, but she rocks. She's a rock star like that fictional character. Our assistant is a whiz with digital information. She's a self-proclaimed social media expert, and she helps us with skip traces, locates, link analysis, and she deals with me. So yeah, she's a real asset.
That's a lot.
To our company. It is. It is. That's why I put that on her resume. Here at JPPI, we work with a vast majority of the legal community in Mecklenburg County. We also cover many other counties throughout North Carolina. Some active cases we have going on now are in Union County, Stanley, Cabarrus, Gaston, Iredell, Scotland, Robeson, Anson, Forsyth, Guilford, Durham, Yance, and Caswell, just to name a few. We primarily do criminal work here at JPPI on federal and state cases. However, we do work with plaintiff attorneys. We work with the subrogation law firm in Richmond, Virginia, where we handle all of their civil litigation work with process service, skip traces, address verifications. And here in Mecklenburg County, we do some civil litigation work as well. And just a quick story, and it's just because it's on my mind right now. We just got a call from an attorney we do criminal work for, but he just accepted this civil client for missing cat. And
are you being serious? Is Mr. Shannon here?
I'm being dead serious. I thought this would be a great story to share. It just came on our desk earlier this morning. And I spoke with the client who shall remain nameless in confidentiality, but his cat got loose and he believes a neighbor took the cat. And the attorney is needing evidence via photos or video of this cat. At the neighbor's residence. He says that the cat comes in and out of the window at the residence, and he's needing us to get evidence so he can file a TRO, a temporary restraining order, to get the process moving with the return of the cat to the rightful owner. So we do civil litigation work as well. So we do it all here. And one of the biggest jokes that I like to tell is we do just about everything short of hurt someone. And in the event you want that, then we might need to meet face to face and talk.
By the way, Mr. Shannon is here, and he said he's here for the cat story. So
well, I'll keep him updated as that case goes along. I'll keep him updated. But that's what we do here at JPPI. And if we can move to the next slide. So this is just a quote about good communication is the bridge between confusion and clarity. Give credit to Nat Turner for this quote. Just in a little bit of housekeeping, as everyone has said in my introduction, I encourage anyone to ask any questions throughout this presentation. I'm open to this time being spent in dialogue to assure everyone gets comprehensive understanding of the benefits of engaging an expert and the necessity of communication throughout the investigation. And I believe either Christina and or Rhiannon will monitor the raised hand or question and answer section.
Oh yeah, Christina is great at this.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
I'm on it, Tonya.
Awesome. I don't want anyone to think they're interrupting me or what have you. I just don't want to, my line of business is primarily criminal, however, in this presentation, I may not touch on, tasks that we've completed for your line of business, in the law office that you work for. But I promise you, if you have a question about it, I'm more than likely going to have, experience in that field. So I encourage anyone and everyone to ask questions throughout this presentation. And with that, we'll go to the next slide. So our objective here today, we have 3 objectives: effective communication, teamwork, and presenting results. We'll delve into each objective with information and my professional opinion, some tips and examples. And if you guys ask questions, it'll make me not feel so alone staring at the screen of my presentation or what have you.
I'm here for you. I'll ask questions.
All right, we'll go to the next slide. All right. These points here on this slide, it's not rocket science. These principles are used in everyday, day-to-day business operations. They're also helpful in our personal lives. So today you didn't know you were getting a 2-for-1 with some professional tips and some life coaching. But in effective communication between paralegals, that communication needs to remain clear and often. We need to set good expectations on both ends, do some active listening, and make some parameters for the method of communication that's preferred. Everybody doesn't like to text. Everyone doesn't like emails. A lot of people, may like to get on the telephone and talk.
So do you adapt to your clients, or do you expect them to adapt to you in that way? Like,
No.
are you accepting Facebook messages or?
So we adapt, and I tell you, one of my, I pride myself on knowing how each and every law office, attorney, paralegal likes to receive their communication. I can't say I have a a spreadsheet or anything about it, but I can let my assistant know, oh no, call John about that. Oh no, you can email Christina about that, or what have you. And it's just, something that's embedded in my mind after working with these law offices for so many years. I kind of keep a tally of the preferred communication, between our office and their office. So no, we're not, it's not our way or no way. It really is tailored to, how the law office would prefer to receive the communication. And that communication has to stay fluid. Well, let me not say it has to, but with certain tasks, it is paramount that it stays fluid, to assure that all parties are on the same page. Both parties should be clear on what is expected throughout the investigation and communicate it as often as necessary. So if we've provided an update, to you, that might not be going, in the direction that you see beneficial, to your needs, that's where that communication comes in, whether it's email or telephone call or, Facebook message. I don't communicate too often with, lawyers on Facebook, but, we would adapt is the point that I'm making here. An example of frequent communication would be if we were physically trying to locate a witness that the attorney has requested to speak to. Once we found that witness, that would constitute, continued communication. I may be standing at a door, and just found the witness that we were looking for, and I got to pick the cell phone up and, call Pete and Pete, I have the witness right here. And put him on speakerphone or what have you. So that's an example of, a tremendous amount of communication. But if that's what the attorney wants, then we accommodate that while out in the field. Some attorneys may just say, hey, Tonya, just grab his statement and some contact information, and if I need him, I'll reach out to him or her later.
So I have a question.
Yes.
So they tell us over and over and over and over again in paralegal school that attorneys are crap communicators. And so, paralegals are kind of the magic glue sometimes, and the bridge and all of that. Yes. So like, I know when we were talking about you come to do this talk, you said sometimes you talk to folks and they're like, well, word on the street is this, that, or the other, or I'm hearing this or whatnot. So as far as, communicating with paralegals who may be doing a little bit of their own research, like, let's talk about, do you want to hear what they heard on the street at all?
I do.
Okay.
I do. Hearsay at times, can lead to evidence. So that's where, the frequency of communication, I do let the paralegal, the law office determine, because I don't want to feel like I'm bogging you down, with what you may think are trivial questions or what have you. But my relationship with most paralegals and legal assistants, like you said, is the glue that holds the investigation together. Because the attorney is busy, working or golfing. The attorney is busy, and you may not have,
Wait,
access.
I'm sorry. What was that? Working or
golfing, or golfing. Yeah. So that paralegal, is the one that a lot of times knows, knows their client and what's going on, a lot more in depth than the attorney, because they're talking to the client every time the client calls the office or, or emails the office or what have you. So, it is important. It really is important that, our calls are answered when we call the law office to talk to the legal assistant, the paralegal, and then some things do need to be talked to with the attorney. But that communication is just, I can't stress enough in this presentation that the communication is so paramount, because I don't want to collect or go down a rabbit hole that you already knew, wasn't going to be beneficial. So that communication is important. And again, as frequently as, as the paralegal or legal assistant, wants to communicate, or as, not so frequent, we kind of work around it. And if I know that paralegal wants to receive emails or what have you, that's the way I communicate with them, always tailoring it to what the law office, has requested.
Tonya, I do have a question.
Yes.
The question is, are written reports to the attorney an option during the investigation?
Yes. Not only are they an option, it's mandatory in my office. So we document everything on what we call a confidential memo. And that confidential memo, what'll happen is, a paralegal legal assistant will give us a call and say, hey, we need this task completed, or several tasks completed. We regurgitate that back to your office on that memo. And that memo will include what we have identified as an investigative action plan. And that's saying, hey, on this day with this attorney or this staff, we discussed the proposed action plan would be to complete task 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then we send that memo over to, the law office to approve. So not only have we talked about it or you emailed us your needs, we've returned, via the memo confirmation that we're going to complete these tasks. Now, I'm not going to say we always get an approval on it, but I know you received it. And if something on there didn't look right, you would reach out. So once we get that approval to move forward, then we go and we complete those tasks that we have. And that investigative action plan on that memo is fluid with the communication, that we have between our office and your office. So at any point in time, you say, oh, well, I don't think we need that right now. We can exit off. Or, oh, can you go and do this also? We can add it to the investigative action plan. And then as that investigation moves forward in chronological order, you'll see on that memo the results of everything that we've done. You'll also receive, let's just say, their videos, audios, documents we've obtained in the field, or evidence, photos. There was one time right before the pandemic, we had heard about in a homicide, we had heard about our client, the defendant, hanging out with 2 girls. And about a year into the case, we heard about these 2 women. And I found the 2 women, and, they're just telling me the story about how they were hanging out that night. And our client, the defendant, was drunk. And she was just casually talking about how, they took photos of him drunk on the porch. And I'm like, photos? And she's like, yeah. And the young lady grabs her phone and she's like, yeah, we Snapchat. And, we were clowning him on Snapchat. Can I see that? She gives me the phone and she pulls up on her Snapchat, a video of my guy passed out on the porch. Well, coincidentally, that was at the same time that a homicide was happening about 7 or 8 blocks away. So our defendant couldn't be in 2 places at one time. Now, the work I had to put in was to convince this young lady to give me that phone. Because now we have to get this, evidence authenticated, to make sure that this Snapchat, I think it was a photo, wasn't altered or anything like that. And I convinced the young lady, it was with sugar, not with, bravado or anything, but, that I'm gonna need to take this phone today. I understand you don't know who I am, but I'm gonna need to take this phone today, and we will get you this phone back. And then we got a forensic guy to pull all the metadata off of it and everything, and authenticated the photo. And just quick, they dismissed the charges against that young man. I won't tell you the second half of that story, but his charges were dismissed after sitting in custody for 2 years. And unfortunately, the second half of the story is once he got once he was released from custody about a year later, he was killed. But we put a lot of work into, those murder charges that he was facing at the time. But again, that's a fluid situation where when I got this young lady in front of me, I got to be able to reach, the attorney, or the paralegal. In that sense, I was able to reach, directly reach the attorney about, what do you want me to do about this phone? And he's like, you got to get it. And then, we make it happen or what have you. So that's that communication, whereas that communication had to be really fluid. I'm not an attorney, so I can't make legal decisions. I don't give legal advice. So at times standing there on my feet, working a case, I need an answer, right then and there as to what I can legally do, or what, would help you most in your office. If I take this phone right now.
Could it ever be a situation where you may even be in danger or somebody else is in danger, or you just, you need people to pick up your phone, their phone?
Yeah, that's the case too. We're actually working in our office now about trying to find the best way to track our investigators. And not because I want to know how many hours you're working, it's not that, but, to track the investigator. I don't ever want to have to call a husband or a wife, because something has happened to you in the field. But God forbid if I have to, I would want to know where we can go out, and find you or what have you to get you assistance. And the same, with, a law office. A law office may know exactly where I am, because they sent me there. So communication, for safety reasons as well. That's a great point you bring up, Leanna. For safety reasons as well. I didn't even look at it that way, but for safety reasons as well. The fluid communication, can be essential, especially once you've engaged us.
Tonya, we have another question for you.
Okay.
From Keith Shannon. He says, hi, Tonya.
Hi, Keith.
Is all of your communication with the attorney or paralegal confidential under the ethics rules? Does an adverse party ever try to get your notes or work product or testimony?
So yes, our communication is protected under the work product. I think is the legal term, and any of you can help me out with that, but under the legal work product. In my contract that I have, I don't have, attorney signed contracts, but in the event you put me right in touch with the client, in our contract, it states that, we don't have to, in layman's terms, we don't have to share any information with anyone. We won't share any information with anyone unless we're subpoenaed or the DA, the district attorney comes and knocks on our office door. And even in those situations, we would reach out to the law office. Has anyone tried? I've had an attorney try to get me to share a link with the DA's office. So, does that constitute someone trying? That's in-house. And I had to let that attorney know, no, I don't think that's a good idea, because then I get a legal hold put on all of our work product. And, I don't think that's good for your client. But outside of that, we've received subpoenas before, and we share those subpoenas with the lawyer that has hired us. And, I can think on several occasions, that information has been, I believe the legal term is quashed. So, and we didn't have to. We had a big case going on up in Forsyth County where we were working for the plaintiffs, and the defense did reach out, to my office asking for, there was an interview that we did with an eyewitness But again, we communicate with the attorney to make that decision. Nothing gets sent out of my office, to anyone outside of the legal office that we're working for. Any more questions?
Not right this second. You're doing a great job.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. So I think I hit on this already. We'll just say it briefly. The method of communication, the fourth note here, we know some people like to text, some people are old school. I'm an old school person. I like good old phone calls. Some people like to meet in person, and some people prefer email. But we do tailor, how we work with your law office to your preference of how you prefer to be communicated with. And with that, we'll go to the next slide.
Question, Tonya.
Okay.
Our firm has normally contracted with the investigator versus having our client. So we fall into the attorney privilege category. Is that common?
Yes, that is very common. Typically, the lawyers that put me in touch with the client, and then I have to get a contract and, collect my retainer from the client. Typically, those are, the lawyer that's the one-man show, who or one-woman show who, probably doesn't have doesn't have a staff with them. And my cat story that I was telling, that lawyer has put me directly in touch with that, with that client. So, that client will have to sign a contract with us and pay the retainer fee, up front. We do bill law offices, but we don't bill, personal need clients. But a law office, I would assume every, law office would like to keep their bar license, so they would pay the bill at the end, of the investigation. But yeah, if you put us directly in touch with the client, then there are a few more, legal steps that we have to take before moving forward with the investigation. Any other questions?
Not right this second.
Awesome. Well, we'll go to the next slide, Greg. All right. So how paralegals can provide support to investigators. This slide is important because what I want to get you to see is that there are times that you can get so bogged down at your desk, because I'm sure that lawyer is asking you for the world and they want it yesterday. That would be a good time to, if it's an investigative request, but that would be a good time to, engage our services as experts. So prioritizing your needs, understanding the needs to develop that investigative action plan that we spoke about earlier. So you give us a call and you're like, Tonya, I need this and this done, but I need this done first. There are some tasks that may need to be completed before others because the information is needed sooner. I'll stick with the process service example. You may need a physical address. And you've done all the Googling you can do, or the stalking someone on Instagram or what have you, but we have additional tools. We use Google and we stalk on Instagram. But we have additional resources that we use, and you may need that address first before we can ever move forward with effecting service on someone, because you have to have that physical address for the filing of the summons or complaint or subpoena or what have you. So I would need for you to communicate, well, Tonya, I need you to serve this paper. However, I don't have an address. We need to complete an address verification first. So that's an elementary example of prioritizing, but prioritizing the address verification over affecting the service in the event of a process service. All right. And by communicating with us, you might not have to reinvent the wheel. If you roundtable with our office frequently when roadblocks occur, we may have an example in this office of how we attacked that roadblock on another case with another law office or what have you. So a quick email or phone call with an investigator, may help with that roadblock to see if you need our services, going forward. And like I discussed, because we might have that prior experience in a separate case, and we can talk with you about how we approached it. Delegating when appropriate, understanding the task that needs to be completed by an investigator. This is an important part of the communication. I know I meet someone every day. I was in a client's parents' house in their home over the weekend, and the sister of the mother. See, I know I can be an investigator because I like being nosy. And okay, ma'am, well, that's great. Well, do you think, you looking to hire someone or what have you? Well, no, we're not looking, to hire you right now. You right now.
She's been listening to a lot of true crime podcasts.
Exactly. And where I'm going with this is we all are nosy. We all are nosy people. However, nosy isn't a professional qualification that makes you successful in this business. So, a paralegal or a legal assistant, knowing that they need an expert to be nosy, in a sense, an expert to be nosy is important. Again, because you may have reached and exhausted all the resources you have, but that's not all the resources that are out there. That doesn't include all the resources that are out there. And we have access. Come again?
Oh, I'm sorry. Aren't investigators licensed in North Carolina?
Yes, yes, we are licensed in North Carolina, and you have to have a license to practice. So it starts at a paralegal or legal assistant's desk, knowing that they need us to do a more extensive investigation. If it's locate an address, find a witness, or what have you. And then an important part about delegating that task to us is, for example, with the example of interviewing a witness. An investigator, if I go out and I interview someone, I can then be a witness, in essence, to the case, because now I can testify as to what was directly told to me. I know a lawyer can't, I know an attorney can't testify to what was told to him in his or her case. I don't know, and maybe one of you can answer me, I don't know if that paralegal or legal assistant obtains that interview from someone that they can turn and testify. And I actually would like to put that question, out to our participants on the call, because I would like to know the answer to that.
Mr. Shannon, paging Mr. Shannon.
Yeah, so the question is, whether a paralegal or legal assistant can testify to what was told to them by someone.
Are you going to wait for him to answer? Bold move.
Oh, okay.
He said, yikes, I'm off the clock.
Well, look, we have 116 participants on here. Someone has that expertise too, because I would like to know.
Well, maybe the question is, have any of you paralegals or even attorneys who are here with us today, have you ever testified? Mr. Shannon says, I would think that the paralegal or legal assistant would not be able to testify. Yeah, that's what I would probably think too.
And that's the same here. So, engaging us in your case, opens the window for us to give that testimony. So again, you thinking that you can find this person and call them up on the telephone and just chit chat with them, or even do a great interview with them. But then where does that fall? However, if we are the ones who obtain, that statement or that interview from that person, then we can be called to testify, in that matter as to what that witness, told us. using investigative services and expert resources wisely. It kind of circles back to engaging us early. You would want to engage our services early because key information, evidence, memories can fade from people. Photos from telephones get deleted, like the example I talked about. Documents are destroyed or lost, over time. So you would, want to consider engaging us early, to help with the legal matter that you're dealing with in your office going forward. We'll go to the next slide.
And we had a response. It says paralegals are bound by the same attorney-client privilege as the attorney, so no, we cannot testify.
Right. So just giving credence to, hiring an expert. All right, this slide is talking with
we have
about
one more question. Can we
sure
pop
thing.
in before
Sure
you
thing.
move on? Okay. So Mr. Shannon says, I've been disqualified as an attorney in a case in which the possibility arose that I might be a witness. But here's the question. Could the testimony of the investigator open the door to a waiver of privilege? I think it would be dangerous, but he's wondering about that.
And again, I don't play a lawyer on television. I'm still, going through the paralegal technology program. But with my experience, no. Again, because it's the work product. Now, if I'm cross-examined, I can only be cross-examined on what the other side will say, because sometimes it's the state, the government, or it could be, a defendant. The information that's shared with them. So let's say, let's keep with the example of the interview. So I recorded that interview and I shared that interview, with the attorney, and now they want me to testify as to what was told. Now I will say this, typically, one of the biggest assets we have here at JPPI is our memo. I've been told that DAs, district attorneys have, an attorney might have shared that memo with them and then, oh, you got JPPI on this one, because we're ethical, we're thorough, and we've been this way for so long in these counties. That memo has saved me from having to testify so many times, because that memo is, again, it's a attorney work product, but that memo is so thorough, when we give it over and they share it with, let's say they share it with the state on a criminal case or what have you. I'll be honest, it keeps us from having to testify, a lot of the times. But in the event we do have to testify, all we can be crossed on is what's heard on that audio, not the conversations that, the attorney and I had about that audio or emails sent, about the audio. All I can be crossed on is whether it was a transcript we included in the memo or whether it was a summary. And typically I ask my clients, how do you want to see this information in the memo? Do you want a transcript, which we get a professional transcriptionist and we include that in our memo? JPPI, you know what a transcript is. Or do you want me to summarize it? And that's paragraphs or what have you, or bullet points or what have you. And I'm sure an attorney has a reason for why they may choose to want it transcribed, why they may choose to want it for our office to summarize, in paragraphs or in bullets, in bullet points or what have you. But again, that's us tailoring how the attorney wants to receive information. And it could be that they're making that choice in the event I have to testify. Any other questions? And thank you all for these questions, really. Thank you. It really is helping me go along with this.
Good. Yeah. You're doing a great job. And definitely thanks to everybody for the questions. Keep them coming.
Definitely. All right, so we're going to move to this slide, how investigators can provide support to paralegals. In providing results, specialized in, you've heard me say this over and over, specialized in tailored investigative strategies to obtain material information. Just as important as the communication of the task from the paralegal to the investigator is the other side of the coin. When results have been obtained, the investigator's communication with the paralegal is essential. I can't collect information and sit on it in my office. You know, one of the things I harp on to all of my investigators is we don't get to choose what's important. We don't get to choose when in a law office, a paralegal, a legal assistant, we don't get to choose when we think you should get this information. Oh, this isn't important. I'll get it to him next week. I'll get it. Oh, I'll email her about it, you know, in a week or so, or what have you, or just totally forget. That's not our choice. You know, we get you the information upon receipt of the information. We typically like to get our memos to you. Some people like to see these memos frequently. You know, we have some attorneys who, you know, once a month, and then when they get the chance to read it, we'll schedule to talk about it. I could say it's seldom that I send a memo and we talk about it on that same day. But then that goes back to the communication of some things need to be talked about, you know, immediately. And some things can wait for, you know, you have the memo for when you have time in your schedule to read that memo. But we don't get to make the decision as to what's important or not. We're just fact finders. I try to make sure all of my guys, I have one investigator likes to walk around with a badge. And you had to order this badge on Amazon because there is no official badge. He actually just walked out.
There's definitely no official badge. That's actually, it's funny, but it's also kind of important information, you know?
Yeah, there's no official badge, you know, like a law enforcement. We do have a card, a simple card, the size of a business card. You know, that's our state ID, but there's no official badge. And I wish he just walked out. I wish he was in here to hear me talk about this because he's ordered, and I wouldn't pay for it. I told him, you got to do that on your own. He ordered
Did he turn it in as a business expense?
Exactly. He probably did somewhere. But, you know, he walks around with, you know, the badge like FBI agents carry, you know. And he's the type investigator, you know, he doesn't go anywhere without a weapon. You know, I'm the type investigator who I feel like my IPC skills, you know, can talk me out of any situation.
Wait, what's IPC?
Interpersonal communication skills. So they, you know, they can talk me into trouble and they can talk me out. You know, I can talk myself out of trouble. You know, but it's just a variance of, you know, how we work as investigators. But yeah, he walks around with the badge, and I'm like, you show that? And he's like, yeah, you never believe how much it works. I'm like, I do. Good for you.
But, I just wanted, sorry, I just wanted to pop in really quickly. Funny thing you said about the badge. This is Allie. I work in a corporate office, and so sometimes we'll have people coming in trying to get, you know, they need information about an employee, but it's not our responsibility to give that. They don't have like a process, you know, service or process or whatever, but they'll come in with a badge. But we still are like, I'm sorry, here's our information. You can give us a call back. But so sometimes it works, but then sometimes you've got the people that know that
exactly
the badge.
His badge may work on LaSalle Street. if anybody's familiar with Bailey's Ford, LaSalle, that badge may give him some information over there. But, you know, going into a corporate office, like you said, you know, you need a subpoena. You might want to go with the subpoena in hand instead of that, you know, instead of that badge. Yeah. But, you know, we don't get to choose, you know, what information is important. We're just fact finders. Again, I try to harp on that with all of my investigators, even the ones that carry badges. You're just a fact finder. You know, I understand, you know, your signature on your email says, you know, lead investigator or, you know, or what have you. But if we could stay grounded that we're just fact finders, you know, we'll continue to do a great job. And it's not our decision in this office to choose what facts are important or not. We just gather the facts and give it all over to, to the client. And if we can keep it that simple, I think now a lot goes into it, but if we can just keep it dumbed down and in our in-house, then, we'll continue to do the great job that we're doing for the legal community. Gathering evidence, ability to provide that evidence, making sure that it's admissible in court. That's where the communication, if I'm out in the field and, there's something needed, maybe I can get that paralegal on the phone, hey, you think you might need this? I might can get us a copy of X, Y, and Z document. You think you might need this? And he or she can tell me, yeah, Tonya, make sure you get a copy of that or what have you. But again, just keeping that communication, that line of communication open. And then I just have here that one of my most frequent calls to a law office is to find out the legalities. Hey, what can I do about this while I'm out in the field before I get arrested? You think I can go into this property, and get these photos or what have you? Or you just want me to get them from the street? Can you use them if I, get on this property or what have you? And a quick answer from, a paralegal or legal assistant or the attorney, would be great, especially again, if I'm standing there in it, right then and there. All right, also, because we are in the fact-finding business, we may have access to greater, more extensive resources that we can gather. We have law enforcement contacts with clerks' offices, maybe access to other attorneys who we've completed similar work for. And then we just try to help bring the facts to light with that experience, that professional experience, that we have in collecting data. And like I mentioned before, we also use Google and LinkedIn and Instagram, but there's so many other levels of information that we have access to. It could be humans, like those certain detectives here in CMPD, I can actually call, and maybe get a little inside track or what have you. But then a lot of other stuff, is what baby girl over there does on that computer with finding, skip traces, finding people that don't want to be found.
And Tonya, earlier today, we had somebody talking about social media. How important is social media in your work, and how has that changed over your 16 plus years, 18 plus years?
It was non-existent back in the day. I remember waking up in the morning and map questing where I was headed, printing it off and turning the light on in the car, so I can read the map quest.
I think everybody does not miss MapQuest.
Yeah. It was all we had back then. It was all we had. If you weren't familiar with the area. I can actually remember having the Nextel phone, the chirp phone, and not having a signal, freaking almost everywhere I went to work. I didn't have a signal, and you're just sitting out in the middle of nowhere. That's when I was doing a lot of surveillance work, and you don't have a way to call, if you have a flat tire or what have you. But this social media thing, I'm embarrassed to say, I'm realizing, here in the last 4 or 5 years, how essential it can be, to an investigation. I personally don't have social media, and it's not because of what I do. I just have never had interest in it. I was one of those people that thought it was a fad. I thought it was a fad and it wasn't going to stick around. But
listen, good on you, honestly, good on you.
Yeah. Now you'll find me on my friends' social media, but you would have to know who those guys and gals are. But, having a legal assistant that, that is savvy. She is extremely savvy with that social media. You'll hear me yell out in here, if I click this, will they know that I saw it, or, or what have you, and she, I'm sure, always laughs under her breath anytime, I'm trying to look for someone and she does it in 2 seconds flat. And I'm still looking in the yellow pages. for a telephone number. But it's changed the game a lot, mainly because, even the bad guys, they call it Fedbook, not Facebook.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in the streets, it's called Fedbook because, so many people put so much on social media. At times it gives us the leads that we need to, again, I work a lot in criminal, it gives us the leads that we need to go find someone. Oh, you know what? This lady, her video is right at the scene. I might want to find her, and police detectives have never interviewed her or what have you. So I'm learning and trying to adapt to, it's not just about boots on the ground, out in the field working. A lot can be done from our desk here, with investigations. It looks like we have a few questions. Yeah,
I have a couple more questions for you. So Vicky'd like to know if you use any special software, and Vicky, if there's something I missed on that to specialize or anything specific on that question, just let me know if you use any special software. And then I have another question after that.
All right. So software, no. You all can share the Clio. I know a lot of you all use Clio. There are ways of sharing information with us out of Clio. That's one. But I'll tell you, most of our attorneys use Box, Dropbox, Evernote. And then all of them use Clio. It's just whether they share that information. But as far as software in my office, no, we don't use, we're cloud-based. We are.
So again, you're kind of adapting to your clients, what
exactly.
they're already doing. Yeah.
Exactly. I won't lie. It can get frustrating having to know to go to Evernote or having to know I can get this information from here or there. But again, it all gets stored. We have, I think, about 77 open investigations in the office right now. And I can tell you about all 77, at least a little bit about all 77. But what I can tell you is how each one of those attorneys, likes the communication to go. But no, we don't have particular software that we use. Now, I have certain online services that I use, databases and things like that, to locate people and things like that. But I'll tell you, one of the things I just learned in my office here back in the summer, we have a way, my assistant has a way of reaching out to Duke Energy and confirming whether, someone has utilities on or the address where they have utilities on. And that's something she just introduced me to, this past summer. So we're always building on our resources that we use.
And then the next one's not really a question, it's a comment. Sheila wanted to comment on how much she's enjoying the presentation. She is a TV sleuth and detective. Thank you so much.
I'm glad to be here. And again, I thank you all for all of these questions. I really do. Just in finishing with this slide, again, we've covered a lot. Lastly, delegating the work to an investigator can lighten the load in your law office. So you spend more time on your specialized legal matter and we complete the investigative task. There's certain things that you all, not certain, there's everything that you all can do, that we don't have the experience in. We just hope that you think enough of us to let us help where we can, and lighten the load at your desk. Again, I know how demanding it could be as a paralegal. We're here for you. We're here for you. So you don't spend that time, beating your head up against the wall, just trying to find someone. You call us, I can call you back in 30 minutes with a telephone number for the person, or, maybe multiple telephone numbers or an address, or a photo of the person. So just trusting us, to be a part of your legal team, we're grateful. We're grateful for that. And we'll go to the next slide. We've kind of touched on a lot of this. This is really just talking about the services we provide. It's not limited to these services, but we do legal investigations. We've already talked about federal, state, criminal. I'll hit on the financial investigations. I have one going on right now where we're trying to confirm assets to know for the attorney to make a decision on whether to file suit or not. So we're working on finding assets and liabilities and everything for it's actually an entity. In insurance, we don't do much insurance work, but however, we do some accident scene investigations. I tried to learn to do a drone before the pandemic. Drove the drone about 2 hours away in some town to do an accident reconstruction, was going to put it up there and put it in a tree, and I never saw it again.
Oh no.
Never saw the drone again. So probably need to circle back around to to that skill set to add to our capabilities here. But insurance investigations, domestic investigations, we actually have a surveillance going on this evening in a domestic case. More infidelity investigations. We do use GPS tracking. If you can show proof that you own the vehicle, I understand that you and your husband are married, or you and your wife are married, but you have to show proof to my office that you own the vehicle, because the vehicle could be in the other partner's name or what have you. But if you could show proof that you actually own the vehicle, then we'll put a GPS tracking device on it, to monitor what that person, their movements or what have you. And in commercial investigations, we do background checks, due diligence screening. We've gone covert into certain places to figure out about internal theft and other covert operations. We have a question?
Yeah, to add 2 questions. Is it possible to get a fee schedule for your services? Mm-hmm. And the second question is, why is determining whether someone has electrical service important to your work?
No, it's not so much whether they have electrical services, but it's to verify address. Maybe they're living at that address. And I'll give you the example. We were doing a child custody case when we found this out, and our client provided the address, which was an apartment building, but we never saw, anything indicating that the subject was residing at the apartment complex. So we were able to verify with Duke Energy who the utilities names were in, and that let us know we were at the right apartment, because before then we had covertly knocked on the door, going to claim we were looking for someone else or what have you. No one had ever answered the door. So we just really didn't know that we were at the right place. None of the vehicles outside the apartment complex matched up. When we ran DMV checks, none of them came back to the subject. And then she had the great idea, let me see what I can get from Duke Energy. And we were able to verify that the utilities were in the subject's name. So we, continued to stay on surveillance. And then we really got lucky. And sometimes, not sometimes, anytime you're in this line of business, you can think you're good, but I promise you it's all luck. You have to show up to get lucky. You can't dial these investigations in. So I instructed the investigator one time, talk to the leasing agent. You never know, you might get lucky and they don't know anything about confidentiality and they share everything with you. And, I'll be darned, I sent that investigator in there suited up and everything. And the leasing agent just told them everything about the tenant. It was so illegal that they shared all of that information. But luckily,
you should put that on a t-shirt. You have to show up to get lucky.
You do. You have to show up to get lucky. So we had to, just try that leasing agent, to see. And they gave us all the information. Now, luckily it's to us, we're not out there to hurt anyone, but they shouldn't have shared, as much information as they did about that tenant. But however, we got lucky, and obtained that information because we were bold enough, to go in that leasing office and, tell them what we were looking for. You have another question?
Honestly, that's kind of good advice too, as far as like, if your client is talking to an investigator, like don't, and you're a rambler or whatever, like,
right.
I see this in depositions all the time. It's like, just answer the question. Don't answer all the other things they didn't ask you about.
Yeah. Don't tell your opinion. Yeah.
Yes, so Tonya, someone is wondering how to get a fee schedule for your service.
Yeah, so what I can do is, however you all want to share it, there's a document that it'll include our capabilities, our rates and services, and just a little bit about us. I can get that to whoever needs it, and then you all can share it with your participants here.
Great.
Does that work?
That works. Ree and Allie, would that be you?
Oh yeah, I'll get you in touch with Tonya, no problem.
Yeah, and I'll email over that the capability statement with the rates and services, and you all can share it, as you see fit.
Would you mind if we just send it out when we, because we're going to follow up with the survey and ask people about, how awesome you are and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So would you mind if we send it out then?
Not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. We'll go to the next slide. I know we're running short on time here, but you guys have saved me. I promise you that. With the questions. The next slide, again, it's not rocket science. We're talking about teamwork here. Our services can provide multiple perspectives, which can be exceptionally useful when an investigation hits a standstill. So maybe you're at a standstill or roadblock in your office. An example is discovery review. Most of the law offices we work with appreciate our summaries we complete from reviewing discovery. And that was something we just did in-house. We get 1,100 pages of discovery, we review it, we create a summary for our purposes in the office. Well, we shared those summaries with some attorneys, and again, maybe because they don't have a paralegal or legal assistant, they wanted our summary. It's not a professional opinion, or anything like that. It's just the facts of what we see, from reviewing that 1,600 pages or so of discovery. So yeah, they've learned to appreciate those reviews of discovery that we've started generating here just recently, actually. And in that case, it's really just another set of eyes on on the state or the government's case against us as a defendant in criminal cases. Maybe an attorney does not have a legal assistant or paralegal on staff. We sometimes fill in when necessary by filing documents. Can't tell you how many attorneys are, hey, Tonya, can you run this to the courthouse for us? Mm-hmm. My office is right here on off of Randolph Road. It's a straight shot, to the courthouse. We do that for certain attorneys. Or fielding those calls from the client and or family members in the event the client's in custody. A lot of family members call this office, because the attorney is so busy or what have you. And we always tell clients that sometimes we are easier to reach than the attorney or the paralegal, but we assure that client that all the information discussed will be shared with the law office because we're a team. And we'll go to the next slide.
I have a comment for you, Tonya,
yes.
and 2 questions.
Yes.
So amazing presentation. So,
thank you.
Next question is, are you privately held, or what is your corporate structure?
Mm-hmm. So we are privately held. We are currently structured as an LLC. However, in 2020, what's the next year we're into? 2022, we will be an S Corp.
Okay. And how often do you need or use subpoenas?
How often do we need or subpoenas are always helpful, even if they haven't been filed, at times in certain situations, just showing it, can get me the information I need. But I'll be honest, a lot of times just on our professionalism, we get a lot of the information, that we're looking for. But sometimes a subpoena in hand would be best before we go out in the field. But we kind of discussed that, part of the communication. We kind of discussed that before we move forward with the investigation. I hope that answers your question.
Great.
All right.
Thank you.
We've hit on the presenting results. We do it in a timely fashion. Equally important as communication of the task to the investigator is the communication of the results back to the paralegal. We already hit on the confidential memo, which is concise and in chronological order. I do want to add to that the memo is factual. You will never see our opinion in a memo. We save our opinion for those phone calls, text messages, or in the body of an email with the attachment of the memo, but we never put our opinion in a memo. It's always the factual information. We deliver the original documents, evidence, photos, recordings, and/or materials collected during the investigation to the law firm. And then at times we can offer that expert testimony, which will be presenting the results of the investigation. The next slide. All right, in conclusion, investigators are a bridge between what is readily known and what needs to be uncovered to make the most informed decisions every time. As a true industry leader, we have earned a reputation for consistently delivering the intelligence that sophisticated clients require to make better decisions. Our pledge of confidentiality, which someone hit on earlier, investigators act as agents of attorneys. Thus, communications among clients, investigators, and/or attorneys are confidential and privileged, and investigators' records and findings are privileged work product. And with that said, I thank everyone for their time today, and you can move to that last slide with my contact information if anyone wants to jot it down, or look at me talk about jot it down. I'm so old school. I still use legal pads for everything.